Hello, my name is Carmack, and in today's After Effects tutorial, I'm going to be showing you 5 more incredible motion graphic and visual effects tricks that MrBeast uses in all of his YouTube videos. I'm going to be showing you epic split screen animations, how to stylistically single an item or person out by creating custom glowing outlines, making photographs 3D to get a good flashback or documentary vibe going, custom 3D text title cards like here in the Mayan pyramids, and how to create a custom animatable YouTube UI. And before we get into this MrBeast masterclass, I have to let you know that this video is sponsored by my sugar daddy, Squarespace. So effect number 1 is how to make a super cool split screen animation. MrBeast did this a lot in his video where people competed against professional athletes, and we're gonna learn how to do this right here. So in After Effects, I have this soccer player and I also have this boxer, and we're gonna make this super cool split screen animation. So traditionally, I think a lot of people would assume the way you do split screen is by like creating a mask on these two videos. So if you grab the rectangle tool, you could do something like this and then put it over here, and then you grab your boxing footage, make a mask, and do something like this. But it's really restrictive because let's say you wanted to like scale up this boxing footage, you can scale it up, but then you always have to readjust the mask. So by doing a split screen with masks is not smart, and I'm gonna show you the smart way to do a split screen animation. And so I am gonna come up to the shape layer tool and grab the rectangle, and I'm gonna create a rectangle that fills up half of the screen. By the way, I'm just going to turn the stroke to 0. I'm going to make sure I create a second shape layer that fills up the other side of the screen, and I'm going to name each one of these. So the right one is going to be right matte, and then the left one is going to be left matte, and I'll show you the magic of what this is going to allow us to do. So I'm going to take my soccer footage here, and in the layers panel, if I grab the track matte and attach it to the left matte, now this soccer footage is only going to be shown where that left shape layer was. So now I'll grab my boxing footage, I'm going to grab the track matte pick whip and attach it to the right matte, and so now the boxing footage is only going to show up where that was. So the problem we had with masking is going to be fixed, because now I can scale up and down the boxing footage or the soccer footage, and it's always going to remain exactly where those shape layers are. Beautiful. So now we have our split screen of our two footages, and now to create the cool bar in the middle, we're going to go back up to our rectangle tool, and I'll make a rectangle straight down the center. And if we want to do it like the MrBeast video, we'll come up to fill, and you'll see right here there's an option for gradient, and I'm just going to hit OK. And over here in the layers content panel, we can click on the fill color box right here, and I'll just do blue and yellow just like in the video, and you'll see once you're selected on your rectangle that there's a little blue line here. If you just stretch that up with the gradient on, it will let you change the location of the gradient. And then to make it pop a little more, I'm gonna go to Effects and Presets, type in Glow, and then throw that onto our rectangle. I'll crank up the radius. So now we have this beautiful split screen. So here's the magic touch. What we're gonna do is come up to Layer, New, and Null Object. And if we select all the layers, grab the Parent and Link tool and attach it to the null object, now our split screen is all connected with one layer. Now here's something super cool. Let's say I drag the null object over here, and you can see that the shape layer that's being used as a matte doesn't show the entirety of the soccer video. So I can click on my left matte layer, and I can actually just scale it up so we can see the rest of our soccer layer. Grab the null object, bring it over here so we can see the end of our boxing video, and if I click on my right matte, I can also scale this up as well to see as much as this video as possible. And that's the power of using mattes. Okay, so now with this null object, we can pan around to so much of these two videos here. So to make the cool animation, I'll create a keyframe for position and scale. And over a few seconds, I will scale it up and move the position to something like this here. I'm gonna select all of these keyframes, right click and easy ease them. And if I open up the curve graph, I'm gonna select the last two keyframes and give it a nice curve like this. So we have this first cool motion zooming into our soccer player in the split screen. And now here is a trick that I don't see too many people using. Let's go up to Layer, New, Null Object. And now we're actually gonna connect our first null object to this new one. And before these two keyframes end on this first null, what we're gonna do is create a position and scaling keyframe of the one we've just attached it to. I'm gonna easy ease these. And then over the next few seconds, what we can do is scale this back and animate the position of our new null to come focus in on our boxer. And the reason we're creating these two keyframes before these two even end is because this way the movement will literally never stop. As the first movement slows down, we'll have this one easing in like this. So now with these two sets of keyframes overlapping, we're gonna zoom in on our soccer player and the camera's not gonna stop, it's gonna go straight to our boxer. So we have this really cool sequence of looking at both of our players here. And then if we want, we can create one more null object, attach our second null to it, do a keyframe for scale and position, make sure it starts before these keyframes end, and then I will just bring it back to how it looked at the very start. Of course, with a nice curve graph like this. And so this is how you create a super sick split screen animation. This is like a really creative way to like show off two different people who are gonna compete against each other. Since everything is linked to these null objects, you can zoom in with the split screen being there in the middle. And that just looks super freaking cool. So our next effect is creating a stylistically cool looking outline on an object or a person. The way people might think they would have to do this is use the pin tool and create a shape layer around somebody, which would be an absolute nightmare. But I'm gonna show you the genius and smart way to create an outline around a moving object. Okay, so here in After Effects, we have all these soccer players getting ready. And let's say we wanna single out this soccer player right here who's stretching. So this is the trick. We'll duplicate our footage and come up to the rotoscope brush tool, and we're just going to mask this guy out. Once you have a nice and clean mask, we'll come down here and hit freeze. So now we have this beautiful masked out layer right here, and this is how we're gonna get our stroke. So if we right click on our mask and we go to layer styles, we're gonna hit stroke. So let's crank the stroke up how big you would ultimately want it. So here's the interesting part. If we isolate this layer, you'll see that the guy is obviously still inside this stroke. But here's the problem currently. Let's say we wanna add a glow to this. Well, we can't really do it the way we would want to, because since the stroke is on top of this layer, it's putting a stroke on top of the glow, which is crazy. We don't want that. So I'll delete the glow. And we want to get rid of the dude inside of this stroke. So under layer styles, you're going to see blending options. We're going to drop that down, and under advanced blending, we're going to see fill opacity, and we're just going to set fill opacity to 0. So now the only thing that's left you can see here is just the stroke of this guy. So now to be able to put like effects and whatnot on this outline, what we're going to do is right click, come to pre-compose, and make sure it's on the second option, move all attributes into the new composition. And we'll name this outline. So I like to go to effects and presets, type in fill, and I'll throw the fill effect on this. So now we can change the color of this line to anything we want. And just for the sake of ease, I'm gonna change it to white. And then in effects and presets, we'll type in glow, of course, and drop that onto our outline. We'll crank up the radius, and then in the blending mode, we'll set it to add. And so now we have the super sick stylistic glow outline effect, and we didn't have to use the pin tool once to try and like trace around his body. This is the easiest way to get the outline of something or someone. So our next effect is going to be doing the 3D photo animation that you see a lot in the Beast philanthropy videos. You can see here I have a photo of Mr. Beast and his fiance Thea. And the first step we need to do is cut each person out of one of these photos and then fill in the hole in the background. Photoshop has really made this easy with all the new AI features. So if you come up to the quick selection tool, you can actually just go to object selection tool. Basically, I just hover over any one of these two people and it gives me a perfect outline of either one of them. So I'll just click on Mr. Beast here. And I'm gonna hit Control C to Control V to copy and paste. And now we have Mr. Beast. And now I'll select Thea, his fiance. Now we have the outlines, and I'll Control C, Control V. So we have both of them. If there's anything that you missed, you can just go in with the quick selection tool and just select anything that you missed. So once you have the two characters cut out from the background, how you recreate the background without them in it is really easy. So if you hold down the Control button and click on Thea, and then you hold down the Shift button and then click on Jimmy, it's going to select both of the outlines of these two images. And then we're going to come up to Select, Modify, Expand, and we can just expand this by 10 pixels. Now you can see our selection goes 10 pixels outside of who we've cut out. This is where the amazing Photoshop AI comes in handy, because now we can just hit generate fill and then hit generate again. And then bam, just like that, these people are gone. We've replaced the background with them. I'm actually just going to convert this generative fill and the background to a smart object. So it's just one layer now. I'm going to call it background. So now we have Thea and Jimmy as their own images above the background. So I'm going to come up to File and Save As, and I'll just call this 3D love photo. So now we can go to where we saved this Photoshop file. We're actually going to bring the Photoshop file itself into After Effects. And this is super important. It's going to say import kind. You want to make sure it says composition and make sure it's checked under editable layer styles. Hit OK. And this is a cool part. Now we can open up this composition here, 3D love photo, in After Effects, and it basically just brought all of the same layers into After Effects. Like here, I have Jimmy, I have Thea, and the background. So what we're gonna do is turn all of these layers 3D, just like this over here. And then we're gonna go to Layer, New, and Camera. It's gonna give you an option of which camera you wanna select, and I'm just gonna stick with 50mm. Now here's the fun part. Down here, where it's right next to Active Camera, we're gonna switch it from one view to two views. And instead of default, we're gonna set it to custom view 1. So now over here, you can see our camera right here. You can see our camera, and when we move our camera, it affects the left preview, which is what we are actually seeing. So here's the fun part. Let's select Jimmy, and you can see these colorful handlebars. What we're gonna do is bring Jimmy forward in 3D space. I'm gonna move the anchor point on his layer down closer to the bottom of his legs so I can scale him down a bit. So now watch this. Because he's in front of everything, if I click on the camera and move it forward, there's now parallax between him and the background. So if you look at this right window with our camera, we're gonna move the background really far into the distance. And then I'm gonna hit S on the background and just scale it up real big. So now when we grab this camera tool, there's all this parallax between Jimmy, Thea, and the background. This just looks super fun. And now what we can do to make it more like Beast Philanthropy or any kind of documentary, we can add in some cool elements. For example, we can bring in a floating dust particle element. I'll solo it so you can see what I'm talking about, like all these dust floating in the air. So if we turn this into a 3D layer, so if we look at the right preview panel, I can bring this forward in 3D space. Right here maybe. I'll set it to add. So now you can see in this left preview that the dust particles are flying around. So now to make an actual camera movement, I'll hit P on the camera, create a keyframe for position, and then over like 5 seconds, I'm actually gonna grab the camera in the preview panel on the right, and then just grab the Z arrow and bring it forward like this. And if you want, you can just like move around all the characters and reposition them how you think it would look best. And now if we watch that back, we have our camera slowly zooming in, and our photo has this beautiful parallax animation. You've now created a 3D photo. There's many different ways to spice this up. I will link a tutorial in the description of like a 3D photo masterclass I made. But for now, I'll just show you one important trick. If you go to Effects and Presets and type in Gaussian Blur, I'll put that on the background. I'll create a keyframe for 0, and then over the time the camera is zooming in, I'll crank the blurriness up so you can see the background is super blurry. I'll set it back from 2 views to 1 view so we can just focus on the beauty. So here is our beautiful 3D photo. So the next effect is pretty cool. It's customizing like a YouTube player screen. I'm gonna show you how to custom animate a red line with a circle at the end of it to be able to move it any way you'd want, like the progress in a YouTube video. So our first step is come up to the pen tool, and we're just gonna draw a straight line across your composition. I'm gonna change the stroke to red, make the stroke big and fat, and I'm gonna actually duplicate this layer, and the stroke on the bottom, I am going to turn dark gray, because on this top shape layer, what we're gonna do is drop it down, go to the add button, and add a trim paths. And under trim paths, we'll create a keyframe for end, drag that over a few seconds, and then we'll bring that down to 0. So you can see what we're doing is having this top red line fill up the dark gray line, like a YouTube player. So now the cool part that we want to achieve, you come up to the ellipse tool, I'm just gonna make the fill red for this guy. I wanna connect this red dot to the animation of the line going up and down. But how do we do that? Well, there's actually this amazing script within After Effects. So if you come up to Window, you'll see down here at the bottom, it's called Create Nulls from Paths. So we're gonna click on that, and you'll see it over here. So this is like freaking magic, guys. Okay, I'm gonna rename these layers really quick. I'm gonna name this dot, I'm gonna name this red line, and then the bottom one, gray line. Click on the red line, and under Contents, we're gonna go to Shape and then Path. And we're gonna select this path right here. In this script, we're gonna click Trace Path. You're gonna see this random purple null that pops up. If you skim through the timeline, it looks really crazy, but there's a few things we have to do first. So over in Effect Controls, you're gonna see on this new null it's made, I'm just gonna rename this layer to Progress Null. So on our Progress Null, we are going to uncheck Loop. And this is super, super important. You see this end feature of your red line that you've animated from 0 to 100. What we're gonna do is link this to the Progress Null, and we can actually delete the trim path keyframes, and you'll see that the null it created came with 2 keyframes. So now we can control the trim paths with this null. But you'll notice the null is attached exactly where the end of this red line is. So if we grab this red circle and bring it to the top of this red line, and then come to the parent and link tool and connect it to the progress null, guys, watch what's gonna happen. It's going to stick to the red line. Here, I'll delete the keyframes on this progress null just to show you that you can crank up and down the progress null feature and control where the red dot is. So you can create a keyframe right here and then really slowly have it come all the way to the end. So your red line is just moving really slowly. So you can add this to any kind of design you're making. And one of the coolest parts about this whole trick is if you grab the pen tool and you make any kind of adjustment to your shape layer, because of our trace paths script, the red dot is gonna follow any custom line that you make. Isn't that super sick? So the way Mr. Beast uses this effect is in complements with a time lapse of the views going up and the video moving really fast. So you can basically recreate the YouTube UI and then custom animate how you want the progress bar of the YouTube thing to go, and then just decide what you want. And by the way, I went over how to do this animated counter effect in my last Mr. Beast tutorial, so check that out, link in the description below. The main thing I wanted to show you in this tutorial was simply how to make a custom red progress bar. So the next effect is super fun. It's how to create like a custom texture look inside a text layer. We created these types of custom text layers in all their Explore videos where the text is like a rock. So I'm gonna show you how to use any picture, texture, anything, and make that the inside of your text layer. So here we have a time lapse of the Egyptian pyramids, and I'll do it like Mr. Beast where it says like day 5. So come up to my text tool, I'll do day 20. You know what? I'll just use the impact font, why not? So day 20. So I downloaded these images off the internet of these like rough brick textures. You know what? I think I'll use this texture for this example. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put this over top of day 20 like this. We're gonna come to our layers panel and grab our track matte and attach it to day 20. So we can scale it up or scale it down depending on how you want your look to look. But now day 20 is simply just the image of concrete. Maybe you want multiple options. I will try this brick wall. So I'll grab the track matte and attach it to day 20. You know what? I actually think that's kind of a cooler vibe. Yeah, that looks pretty sick. You know, maybe to spice this up, if you go to effects and presets and type in tint and then drag that on top of your texture, it can make that like the same color as our pyramids by mapping the whites to the color of the pyramids. See, that looks really freaking cool, to be honest. And then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna right click on this grunge texture layer, go to layer styles, and then stroke. And I'm gonna select my stroke to be black, and I'll size up my stroke. So it's something like this. And by the way, what we could do is in effects and presets, we can add an animation preset to this text. So let's maybe say typewriter, and I'll bring that onto day 20. And the cool part about this being an alpha matte is the texture will show up if you put on a text animation. So you can have day 20, get it typed on with the cool texture like this. And now to make it cool and 3D looking, I will pre-compose these 3 layers. And I'll name it day 20 text. So this is just its own layer. And what I'm gonna do is in effects and presets, I'm gonna type in bevel, and we're gonna get bevel alpha and put that on top of this clip. And under edge thickness, I'm just gonna crank that the frick up. So now our text looks super 3D. And if you're feeling spicy, you can go to effects and presets and put a glow on this as well. Maybe something like that is pretty cool. The glow is almost acting like a drop shadow, which honestly is pretty cool. So this is with the glow, this is without it. Honestly, the glow is pretty sick. And so this is how you would make a super cool, like 3D rock textured title like Mr. Beast. And those are 5 more epic visual effects and motion graphic tricks that Mr. Beast uses in all of his YouTube videos. The series is getting a lot of love, so I appreciate everyone who has been enjoying these tutorials. Don't forget to check out the other tutorials in this series. And it would mean the world to me if you would sign up for an amazing website with my incredible sponsor, Squarespace. I have to introduce to you Squarespace's design intelligence. You might not know this about me, but I have the biggest collection of vintage life magazines in the world. And I want to create a site showing off this American history in a really pretty way. And so with Squarespace's design intelligence, I can create a website that looks perfect and vibey. So with these vintage magazines, maybe some cool vintage looking shapes to show off some covers, a nice color scheme that really matches the dark tones of these magazines. And if I need some assistance, they have award-winning templates. So I actually have a lot of duplicates of these vintage magazines, and I want to sell them as collector's items to other people. And what's amazing about that is Squarespace has online stores you can create. So if you have products, whether that's jewelry, plants, vintage magazines, you can create a beautiful online store with Squarespace. And even better, Squarespace payments is endless. They have all the popular payment methods like Klarna and Afterpay, all the buy now, pay later options. And if you don't think Squarespace is incredible yet, well, how about the fact that they gave me a code to give you for 10% off your first website or domain. So go get a discount on creating a website that will bolster your image as a professional. Really, anybody can benefit from having an amazing website. So build it with Squarespace. Where there's a will, there's a way. My name is Will, and have a nice day.